Good afternoon, everyone. This is Greg Aiden with Aiden Leadership, and I appreciate you joining in today. And I know I say this almost every time, but in this case, I have a special guest. And this guy, this dude, this man, this human being, I'm going to introduce you to Colonel Jason, call sign Toga Trew, PhD. So do I call you Colonel? Do I call you Toga? Do I call you Doctor? What do I do?
Please just call me Toga. Yes.
Okay. Tell us about Toga. How'd you get the call sign?
Oh, it sounds like it could be a cool frat story, whatever.
That's
It's
what I was
really,
thinking.
yeah, no, it was really about my inability to land the F-15 when I was
Oh,
a young fighter pilot. Yeah, I was a pretty good fighter pilot, I gotta admit, but man, landing the airplane was never, never my forte. It's an important part of the mission, though, right?
yeah.
And when you become combat mission ready, which is a long time to get to that point, you get a name. This is fighter pilot tradition. And on that day, I had one of my worst landings, and I thought, oh, surely no one saw that. Thankfully, I mean, I almost ran off the end of the runway. The brakes are smoking. Well, no, everyone had seen it, and so that night, that sort of became the focus of my naming ceremony. And so I ended up with this call sign Toga, which stands for take off, go around,
Hmm.
which is apparently in big airplanes. I've never been in the cockpit of a big airplane. I've only flown fighters. Apparently, there's a toga button, and the joke was that I sort of needed one installed in my own little F-15. Now, I got to admit, that I thought at first, like, toga, I don't know. I mean, maybe I can live into that, right? 'Cause this is how everyone starts to know you. Uh, I do have sort of a thing for Greek philosophy. So I was like, okay, I can kind of live into that part. And the other part that was just sort of serendipitous is that I rode for the Air Force Academy cycling team, and I came across a bike shop that was named Toga. It's apparently New York City's oldest and largest bike shop. And I just thought that's interesting. I wrote them a note and I said, hey, I'm Toga, you're Toga, whatever. And they sent me a shirt, and their emblem turns out was the like Air Force pilot wings. And instead of like our normal crest in the middle was a bicycle crank that said Toga. So I thought, man, this was just meant to be.
Yeah. Well, Toga it is. And then you said Greek, and I want to bring up the on your LinkedIn. There's Daedalus was the architect, Icarus was the artist. Tell us about that, because then I want that to lead into getting into the not the serious part of you, because you're all about play. And if you get to know Jason, you'll know that not only is he a intelligent man and well schooled, but he's committed to a lot of different things to help educators, to help leaders. But first of all, tell us about that. Where did that come from, and why do you want us to know about that on your LinkedIn?
So for me, it's become a master metaphor for a lot of things. My academic research when I was going through my history PhD, and some of the work I've done since once I came back into Air Force professional military education. Growing up in the Air Force, actually even before, when I was 11, I joined Civil Air Patrol, which is an auxiliary of the Air Force. And I remember they handed me a book, and the first page of the book was the Legend of Icarus and Daedalus. And briefly, to escape a maze, they craft two sets of wings from feathers and wax. And Daedalus is the father; he's the master builder, and Icarus is the son. And Icarus gets overjoyed by the thrill of flight and goes closer and closer to the sun until the wax melts, the wings disintegrate, and he falls to his death. So the story is always, don't be like Icarus, right? And this story is told so often in histories of aviation. It's told fairly often within our culture. There's a big statue of Daedalus out in front of our officers club here on base. There's rooms named after Daedalus, and if there's any mention of Icarus, it's just him being a fool. So in my dissertation research, where I was looking at sort of the social history of early airmen, I kept noticing references to Icarus as the hero of the story. And this sort of confused me, right? And so
Sure.
that's sort of the intuition to like, let me go look more into that. And what I realized after a few weeks of just doing nothing but studying the myth from ancient Greek culture is that in their version of the story, first of all, it doesn't end with that. It ends with Daedalus being so heartbroken that his inspiration, this sort of joyful artistic side of him, was gone, that he couldn't invent anything ever again.
Mm.
And so it was the tension of both that fatherly figure, that that knew how to, manipulate materials, and this passionate, playful son. And it was both of them together that we needed. And years ago, someone wrote a famous book called the Icarus Syndrome, saying that airmen are too distracted because we just love flying too much. And so then my book became the Icarus Solution, which was, hey, if we want to have innovation, we have to have dataless, but we also have to have this playful Icarus figure as well.
Yeah. You opened a beautiful door for us. Playful, play. How do you view playing as a leadership development tool? How do you see playing as a necessary opportunity for human beings to learn at a new, different level, and actually walking away with skills and otherwise they would have never had?
So have you seen the Lego movie? There's
Yes.
the,
Oh,
right.
yes. I've
So
seen them
there's,
all.
yes. So there's the spaceman character, which I love because I had that dude when I was little, right? It's like the only Lego that I really remember. My parents still have it. And the whole movie, he's like, can I build a spaceship? Can I build a spaceship? And finally they're like, hey, can you build a spaceship? And he gets really excited. So anytime someone asks me about play, I feel like that's
That
me.
guy.
I'm like, oh, we can talk about play now. That's great. So I'll try to contain myself. I do
Please.
love the fact that Lego is actually Danish for play well. So that's just a neat, clever, nerdy thing. And I love nerding out on the meanings of words and whatnot. But
Me too.
play for me, yeah, it's so much fun. Again, sort of this serendipitous moment that you can't plan ahead of time. And if your eyes are open and your mind and heart's open, you'll see these things, I think, in your life. And for me, it came from really disparate areas. One was I had a running injury, getting ready for a triathlon. So I was doing some research on that led to some readings, and that led to looking at a footnote, and that led to a book called Play by Dr. Stuart Brown. And I thought, well, this is interesting. There's actually like people who study play. And so I started reading the academic journals. At the same time, I was in the strategy school for the Air Force. And interestingly, some of the same lines that I would read about play would remind me of the same lines I would read about strategy. And I thought, well, this is really intriguing.
Yeah.
And then as I left that program and then went to do the PhD at Auburn University, it was history of technology. I had a focus on organizational culture and innovation. I kept seeing again the use of play, really starting from the Icarus metaphor, the use of play and its role in innovation. And I thought, well, the universe has told me to pay attention to this, so I'm
Yeah.
going to start paying attention to play more and more. And it's been a wonderful rabbit hole to fall down. And I've learned all sorts of things about the different ways people define play, which we don't have to go into here. But to answer your question specifically about as a leadership development tool, there's plenty of good, valid play that people do that's just kind of fun and frivolous and getting the people to be their full freaky self, right? To
Yeah.
get the teams comfortable with each other. And I don't deny that at all. The kind of play that I'm interested in is sort of a warped play, I would say. It's sort of this, how do you take an idea and subvert it or pervert it or twist it or bend it, and to see to play with the limits of it, to see
Yeah.
if it's a different way, or just to think more creatively about a scenario. And I think that creativity is necessary not only for like formal innovation or design efforts, but as a leader, when you're trying to figure out what do people need. And we want to play well with others, we want to be engaged with others. All this is kind of revolves around this world of how we are when we are being playful. That's really the distinction I should make, right? Playful is an attitude,
Yeah.
play is an activity. We
Right.
can be playful in the course of things that are very serious.
Hmm.
There were some times where when I was deployed about a year ago, where I was definitely being playful in my own mind, but I'm not going to, that outwardly to the general officer asking me, what do we do right now to deal with the Russians? I was not going to be
Right.
suggesting a game to play with them, right?
Well, your definition of play and how it is torqued and converted and warped. I like. And so, do you have an example of something recently that you have been a part of? And by the way, before we get too far into this, I also want to recognize Dr. Steve Ralph, who is the executive director and founder of the Epic Society, and that's where Jason and I met back in April. It seems like it's been a half a year ago already, but he was putting on a creative leadership conference, a summit, and brought just beautiful people together from various organizations, various walks of life. And I found it extremely beneficial, not only to participate and speak at, but the quality of individuals that Dr. Steve Ralph has surrounded himself with is unbelievable. And again, thank you for wanted to be on the show, because there was lots of times when you'd walk down the hallway of this conference, the summit, and you heard people just laughing and giggling and really cutting it up, but they were playing and they were studying, they were becoming better. So is that what you're up to most of the time? Is that part of what you're doing when you, and again, I also noticed you're a big fan of collaboration and a big fan of making sure that, people are having fun while they're learning. So put all that together for us. And if there's one or two definitions of who you are, and I like this question. You're in an elevator. Maybe you're dressed like that. Maybe you're not. If you were, you're certainly going to get some looks and some different questions. So let's pretend you're in your civilian clothes, but your briefcase says Colonel Jason Toga Trew, PhD, and then they look up and they say, "Excuse me, sir. What do you do? What's your why? What would you tell that 12-year-old?"
Oh, that's a good question. And so one thing that I have learned, and this is something we might want to talk about, is I've learned it from the field of design thinking, is that I always need to be empathetic with the audience, and if I don't know what they're thinking, I need to quickly figure it out. So sometimes, to be honest, depends on the audience. I don't even use the term play, because it's distracting for some, because they have a very solid definition of their mind. Of what that means. Same thing, strategy and design. And I love to show and not tell, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if someone wants to know what I'm doing, I would rather maybe do a quick little exercise. And so here's one that we do sometimes in the car. I don't want to get the sense that I'm this highly enlightened guy who's always got it together, right? There's sometimes I'm just struggling through the day like everyone else, but when I'm at my best and I have the wherewithal to be intentional about it, and something will happen in traffic, someone will cut me off or whatever, and my first reaction is not very noble, but then I think, oh, like, what would be a valid reason that I would give that person a pass, that I would say, oh, they're having a bad day, they're on the way to bring their dog to the vet, or whatever. And then I go, okay, well, what's the next thing? And then it gets more ridiculous, right? Until we've crafted this entire story that just is nonsensical, but I feel better. The moment's passed. We've taken the situation and twisted it in different ways. And that's the sort of, having gone through that, I could say, like, what if we did that with other constraints or other challenges that we had, that we not only feel better about it, but we actually get the better outcomes.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, imagine if in your case, not only did you take a breath and not do anything that would maybe upset a lot of people in your car, their car, other cars, actually bump into each other. And there's a lot of that going on. Not only did you pause, but you actually said, okay, what can I do to think about it in maybe even a playful way or a fun way, or something that isn't going to require any negativity. So that's got to come from a little bit of training, a little bit of practice, something that you enjoy. And do you coach this? Again, just for people who haven't read about Jason, he coaches triathletes. He coaches marathon athletes. I'm going to assume here for a second you're an athletic guy. I know, I can just tell by our time together. Do you do all the running, or do you just coach the running?
No, I do it. Again, for some reason I was cursed blessed with the urge to be good at things that I'm not actually good at. So which has forced me to, work hard or find workarounds. And then I,
Sure.
at some point, felt, led to then like share those hard won lessons with others. And so that's an interesting conundrum for a coach, right? At one point, there's directive coaching, which is, kind of, I have a skill, I need to teach it to you. And then there's more like a facilitative developmental coach that is there to listen and help walk alongside you. And so different situations, right, that require different ways. If someone wants to know how to, get their set up their transition zone for Ironman, it's like, okay, well, here's some things you should do. And I know because I've screwed it up, in the past. I've learned a lot from just mistakes and then thinking about them. But sometimes what's going to really help that person in the long run is letting them make the mistake, right?
Mm,
And that balance as a coach of where to, and not only as a coach, but any sort of coachful relationship, someone on your team, someone in your family, someone in your life, right? How much, what are they willing to hear? What do they need to hear from you? When do you just need to listen, right? All
sure.
sorts of things roll into that sort of, again, coachful approach to the world.
When you hear the word get better or the phrase get better, grow, unleash your potential, I mean, what does that mean to a man like you? And what does that mean to the people that you actually work with when you say growth?
Right. Oh, yes. So I get super excited. Now, most of my coaching has been informal. It's been the leader as coach sort of model.
Hmm.
I do hope to get, as I transition to a new stage in life in the next year, to doing things like you, right? Like where it's a more formalized coaching relationship. I get really excited about helping other people grow, and I think this was first sort of ignited in me uh, when I got into education. So I spent the first half of my career, let's call it Toga version one, right? Toga the
Right.
fighter pilot, flying, deploying, all those kind of things, trying to be a tactical professional as proficient as possible. Uh, that was my focus, professionally at least. Toga 2.0 was getting to come up to the school here, which is like a year-long master's degree. It's like an MBA for Air Force officers.
Sure.
Um, and which I was a last minute select for because my performance prior to that didn't warrant giving me the like golden ticket. And so it was a last minute, again, serendipity. I was just in the right place at the right time. I got pulled up to school, and I thought I could stay here. And actually, someone else spoke into me. One of the other faculty members said, "Hey, you should consider staying here." And I even went home to my wife and I was like, and she was like, "No, like this, you would be really good at that. You should really think of it." And I thought, okay, well, let me listen to her. And
Well,
uh,
where is here? Because not everyone knows where you are.
yes, okay. So I from New Orleans and spent most of my Air Force career in the Southeast. Uh, my last flying assignment was at Pensacola, and then when they called me up, it was just 3 hours north to Montgomery, Alabama, which is where
Sure.
Air University is located, and we're a accredited university. We grant degrees just like every other university, but it's part of the military professional education
Cool.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
So I asked the fighter pilot, assignment team if I could stay, and they said yes for 1 year, and then we need you back to the cockpit. So I
Okay.
taught, and I thought like this is what I was meant to do with my life, like
Mm,
helping people understand things, make connections, seeing the light bulb go off. Those moments in the classroom
yeah.
were so fulfilling. And I thought, how can I just keep doing this? And so they said, okay, you can stay 1 more year. and then, and that was a decade ago. And
That's awesome.
so, right. And
Well,
so,
but hang on a sec, Jason. You keep saying as if okay, first of all, kudos to your wife for moving to there and wanting to stay there and supporting you. I mean, let's not forget that it's behind every great person is someone who helps them be great. And let's give your wife a name, by the way.
Jennifer.
Jennifer. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jennifer, for
absolutely. With the,
supporting this goofball
yes,
who has a lot of people who love him. And also, you're very humble. And they said, okay, 1 more year, and it's been a decade. but there's a reason why you're still there. There's a reason why they want you there. And again, let's take the humility hat off and just tell the audience, what are you really freaking good at? And I know you are good at getting people to see what they can't see without your insight, without your coaching, without your ability to communicate at an incredible level. And I mean, all over the place, but you're easy to follow. So, maybe I just gave you part of the answer, but what do you believe you're really freaking good at?
Thankfully, I had some people who agreed that my best contribution to the Air Force, that I was at my best and could do my best for the service in this capacity.
Yeah.
And so, instead of putting me back into the cockpit, some people went out on a limb for me, and I'm forever grateful for those individuals to say, no, let's send him off to more school. So a couple years around here as a student, another year at the strategy school, then PhD, then right back here into a leadership position at our leadership school, which I stayed at for 4 years, deployed, then came back to my current position at the strategy school, which is, again, as a student, I barely made it into because I was the last alternate selected off the list. And so
there's a part of this that I wanted to bring into play too. Your why I pulled that out of something you had said on LinkedIn. Innovate education so we can become better at educating innovators. What does that mean to you, and how could that be, or why is that part of your why?
yeah, so I think that innovation for some people, and I think this is maybe changed, it is associated with technology, right? And technology is very much a thing. And, it makes a sound if you drop it on the ground. I see technology as in a broader perspective that includes the humans that are part of it. And I also see innovation in a broader perspective as, useful novelty. To use the terms of Jeff DeGraff, who's a mentor of mine from University of Michigan. And when I returned from my PhD back to Air University, innovation was just sort of on everyone's mind, but it was a lot of bending metal. And I thought, well, the people that are here bending minds, they're innovating as well, right? And I was really inspired, excited about what we could do within the realm of education to help these people who then need to go on and innovate in other areas, whether it's organizational culture, structure, policies, or bending metal, right? Coming up with new ways to do things. So I got really excited that I was just, again, so fortunate to end up at Squadron Officer School, which is our primary leadership school. Thousands and thousands of Air Force officers go through there every year, and they had a really robust innovation program. And week 2, I'm just starting to wrap my mind around what I am doing as a squadron commander there. And the commandant at the time said, "Hey, you're going to run the innovation program because the current guy needs to cycle out. You're going to cycle in." And I thought, oh gosh, one more thing on my plate. I don't know if I can do it. And it was amazing. And that led to some sort of really interesting experiences learning about design thinking. And then that point was sort of a repeat of my first experience in the classroom. I was like, oh, this is what I was meant to do. I'm like, oh, teaching design and innovation, like, holy smokes, like this, like, how can I do this for the rest of my life? Right.
Yeah. You have an opportunity in this classroom to share all sorts of insights. And what are some of the insights that when you share them, Jason, you see, you feel, the people in front of you just went, I got it.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I feel like I'm the one getting it sometimes from them, which is great, right? Because we have just
Sure.
the best. We have hundreds of people who apply to our program. We get to pick the best. Every now and then someone like me gets to slide in at the very last minute, but it's good. So that's sometimes me going back and saying, oh my gosh, I see the world differently now that my student brought this up. But some of the things that they don't expect to hear from me. I would say when I was at the leadership school, someone asked me once, hey, like, if you boil down, what is your leadership philosophy? And just sort of in the moment, I was like, I think it's just love. I think I can just say love. And people were like, oh, well, that's not what we expected to hear from our commander. I think a lot goes to that when I now in the context of the strategy school, I really want our students to see that strategy is not about winning. It's about continuing advantage.
Hmm.
And I think you can apply that in a lot of ways, right? It's a horizon that we never actually reach, but we're always striving to get to. It's the infinite game in James Carson's
Sure.
terms. And so what it might not be about, or it is not just about like a plan and move these things here and do this. It's about like, well, prior to that, like how do you form the team and set the space and give them that creative tension between humility and confidence, that where both are strong. It's almost like a trampoline and you've got both sides being pulled. Humble, uh, which leads to curiosity, and but confidence that you can still create and go make a difference. And when you pull both, you get that energy, right,
Love
of the
it.
transitional.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things where they're often surprised when I say, and again, I've stolen this from people that I respect. The whole idea of winning strategy is not about winning. But yeah, I think it's one of the things that they take away, that they go, that's they're gonna sit with that for a little bit. Sometimes they push back, and sometimes they come back and say, no, I like that.
No, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I mean, not to be funny, but that I have a 12-year-old son who's extremely confident, and I have enrolled him into the University of Humility, and I'm waiting for that trampoline to even out. But I love what you said about the tension of both, and when you have the right tension of both, or the right balance perhaps of both, that you will have a more dependable place in which to jump, perhaps even a bigger space. Again, I'm just making my own reason with your stuff. But the way you articulate what it is that you're trying to say so people can see it, because I believe we listen with our eyes. I know I mentioned this when I was doing the courageous conversations, and you were kind enough to be part of the class. But I believe when we listen, we're listening with our eyes too. And instead of saying I hear you, I see you. Do you believe that they might just go out and be kinder and more lovable human beings if we as parents and we as leaders actually see them, hear them, appreciate them, value them, and understand them? Do you think that's possible? And again, it's such a silly question, but I need a man like you to hear that and give me your 2 cents on it.
So not only do I think it's possible, I think, and this is on day one when our students show up, I I start with, hey, you're at the strategy school. You're going to be asked in 337 days to go do amazing things. You've already done amazing things, and so we're going to put a lot of strategy in front of you, hundreds and hundreds of books. You're going to write hundreds and hundreds of pages. It's the most intense year of their adult life, typically, and I know it was for me. And then I say, listen, for all that, that's not actually what the school's about. It's actually about you as a person and how you interact with others. And I think that you, you get to practice strategy every day. Because if strategy is not just about winning, if it's about building a team and helping other people feel safe and supported, seen, heard, valued, appreciated, um, you're doing that with your friends, you're doing it with your family, you're doing it with your coworkers. And I think if you're doing it well, also like sort of your human performance, you show up better for school for us, and you're better prepared to read, write, and discuss strategy. And it's a virtuous cycle that sort of then makes you better at what you do with in all areas of your life. I think that's really sort of the value proposition of the school that we're in.
Yeah, and the denominator for me, below Shuva, is and will always be curiosity. I believe when you're young, you're always asking, Dad, why did you do that? Why do I have to hold the flashlight over here? Why did you use that tool? And my dad passed a couple of years ago, but he died saying that you asked why more than any human being I've ever known. But it's just what I did. And guess what? As a leadership coach, as an executive consultant, I ask why all the time, but it's their why that I'm trying to figure out. And I
Yeah,
want them to be curious. And again, I know this to be true, that curiosity, and again, authentic art of asking beautiful, open-ended questions. That's what curiosity means to me. If it's done right, you can literally get anybody to talk about anything, but it's about them. And I will go to my grave saying this: leadership starts with you. but it's not about you. We want you to be a well-prepared airman, a well-prepared student, a well-prepared anything. So yeah, it starts with you. You're in the center of this beautiful circle, but it's not about you. It's about the people following you. And I believe you and I would agree to this, that the students, your followers, your children, your neighbors, they're not always listening, but they're always watching you.
I think at moments, really, even as I was about to become a father for the first time, and as I was about to become a commander for the first time, that I thought, well, how am I supposed to show up? Like, let me think about this. And then a lot of people, you know, rightfully with a lot of wisdom poured into me and said, like, just be authentic and show up with compassion and empathy and listen and a certain amount of playfulness. A lot of the ways that you described questioning, I would put that under the rubric of playfulness,
Yeah.
and let the details just sort themselves out. And that really plays out. And that's true. And I find that the thing that I could do best to support the people, because everyone beneath, organizationally beneath me is going to rise up and do great things, right? So what can I do to support them? It's just be authentic. And when I screw something up or I don't know, I just admit it. And I try to admit I made a mistake yesterday. And I was like, oh,
Sure.
and if I can be authentic and vulnerable, and sort of say the silly things, then make it safe. They're like, well, if the boss is going to say this, then I guess I could say something mildly strange myself, right?
Yeah.
And so that presence, whether it's at home with our families, and it's a matter of integrity, right? Like that we're well put together and these sort of bits match each other, and we're not, we are different people in different places. It's just what the situation warrants, but at our core, right? If we bring more of our core, I think we're helping everyone out.
Yeah. And being present, it's something that will always be important. And to me as a dad, being present and letting Brooks know that I'm here for you, I see you, I get you. Now, I may not always agree with you. I may not always, when I ask, the silliest question I've ever come up with is, how can I be a better parent today? How can I be a better dad today? And some of it is buy me more Legos. Some of it is let me stay up later. Can I have more mac and cheese? But when you ask enough and you have these really fun conversations which I've been having with them for over 6 years now, they will tell you some very interesting things. And I love the question, and I love that about the same question I ask my leaders to do, is to say, how can I be a better leader today? And you might just get something. You might just get some information that can help you serve somebody at a much, much higher level. But tell us, what would you like people to reach out to you for? Because
Oh,
I recognized on there, if you have some very interesting things to say about yourself, and then you basically say, contact me if you want to hear more or want to know me better or something like that. So what would they get a hold of you for, other than the things we chatted about?
right. So if Toga version 1 was the fighter pilot, and version 2 was the dude who got to teach at this amazing institution, version 3, I think, looks a little bit like what you do, Greg, right? I'm trying to figure out how to, this idea of serving has been great, but it's been very global and abstract in a lot of ways. National security is hard to point at sometimes. So I'm really interested in how to help specific people, uh, you know, go from an 8 to a 9, right? Like high performers become even better, or people that are like that have influence, and want to increase that influence. So if anyone's interested in that, if they know how I can do it, if they want me to help them do it, that's the world that I want to experiment in. But really, if there's anything that I can do for someone, especially they want to study play, if they want point outs to various books, or resources, I'm happy to do so. Anything from design thinking, Lego serious play, triathlons, you name it. I find that even if I don't have a real clear understanding of why I'm going to talk to someone, something interesting always comes out of it.
Guess what? You just described my whole podcast series. I I know something's going to come out that's going to be very, very telling, very interesting, and it didn't come from me, but it comes from my guests. And I knew you were going to be a very interesting guest. It just because of your background, no, because of your experiences, no, I believe you're a very interesting human being because of your desire to serve others. And I felt that from the minute I met you. And the best thing that and I can tell you, if you want to do something like what I do, is to figure out what kind of individuals you will enjoy the most. Because when you put that out there, you will attract exactly what it is that you want. And when you ask for something over and over and over, whether it's the universe or whatever your faith is, most of the time it's delivered. And we can say serendipitous, or we can say luck, but no, my friend, it's what you do better than anyone I've ever interviewed. You have an intention about you that's off the chart, but it's a kind intention. It's not an off-putting. You're not bragging about yourself. You're sharing your experiences so people can find a way to connect with you and benefit from knowing you.
I think the magic happens together, right? Like
Mhm.
dialogue. I love the word dialogue because it's when we make meaning together. So thank you for having me and for doing this, because this podcast itself is a great resource that I've listened to and, you know, become inspired, and my mind travels different ways because, you know, the diversity of the people that you have on, your knack for asking questions and being present yourself. So
Yeah. Thank you.
so I appreciate that.
Well, and your LinkedIn page is like a library for people who want to grow. And again, just your posts and how you put them together in a very organized fashion with nice images. And again, a lot of people go to LinkedIn to get connected, but a lot of us go to LinkedIn to learn, and we learn from others. And there's never an original idea. It's a good idea that everybody makes their own and uses, and that's wonderful. I mean, it's I'm not a fan of plagiarism. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's a lot of neat ideas that people take and say, I like this, and I can really communicate this better than I can that. So go visit Jason's LinkedIn. You'll use Col Jason Toga Trew PhD. And Jason, again, I want you to give Jennifer a big hug for all of us, that for her patience and letting you do exactly what it is you want to do. I'm sure she's benefiting from your ability to help her grow too. And God bless you. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
All righty. Be kind, be considerate to somebody. And what I want you to do today is I want you to find a 12-year-old in a kind way and ask them, what is something that you can do to be a better parent today, a better leader today? And I'm talking about you as human beings. Talk to your kids, ask those really fun questions. And please, for the love of who, don't have this technology in your hand when you're trying to have a conversation with your kid, because they're just going to have one in their hands too. And then you're back to square one. And that's not the purpose of the phone, is to not let us be present. So there you have it. Go out and love someone today and make the world better. We'll talk to you soon.